So, Max, the time finally came for Scott Frost in Lincoln, Nebraska. Nebraska makes the move. They're moving on Mickey Joseph, the interim. You had a big piece on The Athletic about Frost and the program and just all that's gone on. Your thoughts, the fact that it's happening now, what that means for Nebraska, and just kind of the general feeling overall in Lincoln?
Yeah, I mean, on Saturday night when I watched Georgia Southern beat Nebraska and put up the most yards ever allowed in Memorial Stadium, I didn't actually think Scott Frost was going to get fired on Sunday. I thought probably that game would seal his fate, but clearly Trev Alberts has the support now to make that move, and I think it probably gives Nebraska a chance to be a little bit more competitive the rest of the season because they don't have that cloud hanging over them now. These guys, still love the coaches on their staff and will play hard for them, and it's not all about Scott Frost and his job being on the line and his decision making every week. So interested to see how they respond this week against Oklahoma. Obviously a big underdog, and can Mickey Joseph kind of settle things down there a little bit? I think they'll probably respond well and put up a pretty good fight in that game. But yeah, certainly it was time. I just thought, when you look at the decision last year to give him another year, I didn't really see any way that would lead to an outcome that was going to work out for Nebraska. I thought it was inevitable that this was going to fail, and to knock it out after 3 games was a surprise. But Nebraska's also been, especially on defense, worse than people expected.
You and I traded a couple of text messages. I said, what is a great article on Frost, a lot of insight. And you said, I asked you about the truth bullets that you put out there. Some of it was the transition, the attrition, all of that. And if you don't mind, I'm going to share what you said to me. You know who doesn't have that problem? Dave Aranda. Because guys trust him and believe in what he's saying and doing. Is that what happened in a lot of ways with Scott Frost? Did people just stop trusting him?
Max, you there?
Okay. Sorry, guys.
Sorry about that. That's okay.
You got me. Yeah. No, I think, I think that's right. And I think the reason we talked about that is, I wrote a piece yesterday looking at just the roster issues Nebraska had. They lost 56 transfers during the Frost era. That was the second most in the Big Ten. And that includes a ton of the guys that he recruited and brought to Lincoln. 40 of the players in his first 3 classes, decided to move on from the program. And whether that's because they weren't good enough to play in the Big Ten, or they weren't happy, or they weren't getting playing time, or they weren't, whatever the reason, you can't build a good developmental program, when you're losing that many guys. And I think, you look at this last offseason and Baylor, really didn't lose that many transfers. I just bring that up as a contrast to say, I think there is a big culture piece to that. It's not just about recruiting, and it's not just about, the crazy times these days we're living in, and it's so easy for guys to move on. I think, when you look at a lot of programs, especially in this part of the country around Nebraska that are succeeding, they don't lose a ton of transfers. And that's because I think you generally know what you're looking for in recruiting, and guys believe in the blueprint and want to stay and want to get better and want to develop, these veteran teams that can compete for conference championships. Nebraska just really has kind of been failing to do that. And that's why I think you see a lot of these, whether it's Matt Campbell, Chris Kleiman, Lance Leipold, those kind of guys, you kind of see them getting thrown around for these jobs because it takes that kind of coach, I think, to be successful at Nebraska. And there's just really no shortcuts with that. And I think Aranda is a great example of, guys stay at Baylor because they believe in the mission. They believe that the coach has their best interest at heart. And I think that when the coach isn't as genuine and doesn't have that good of a culture, you're going to have a lot of attrition and a lot of problems.
Do you think, you mentioned some of the guys that, on the rumor mill, do you think that that Trev Alberts will try to swing big, much like the coaching cycle last year? Or is that not necessarily the case? Can he do this by grabbing an up-and-comer?
Yeah, it's a very different search now than I expected, because you usually expect this to be something you're dealing with in late November, and you got a pretty short window there, and you got to kind of narrow it down to a couple guys. And, now it's all out in the open there. Nebraska's open, and Trev Alberts has, 10 weeks or so to kind of sit back and see who impresses him and to do his homework on, I think it's going to be a lot larger cast of potential candidates here. And there'll probably be a ton of rumors and speculation and all that stuff. A lot of people tied to it. But I think Trev Alberts gets to take a closer look at, maybe there's some of those guys out there like a Jamie Chadwell where you're just sort of like, yeah, maybe he wouldn't have been considered very seriously for it. But now you get maybe those guys, those sort of G5 guys, maybe have a little bit more of a chance, or maybe a Lance Leipold has a little bit more of a chance where you can go really look at what they're doing and say, yeah, the record at Kansas is not great, and it's very hard to be successful there, but maybe you get taken a little more seriously through a search like this. And yeah, I mean, in terms of big swings, I don't expect them to go after Urban Meyer. But I do think that there's probably a few names out there that I'd imagine they're going to look into. I would be curious what the situation is going to be, in Carolina. And is Matt Rule a guy that could be up for this job depending on how things work out there? But I'm not saying he's a guy, but I mean, I could see that making sense if he were let go in Carolina. I think there's going to be, when we get down to it here in November, man, there's going to probably be a bunch of names out there and a bunch of rumors for sure.
Yeah, Max, you just said his name. I was thinking of Matt Rule while you're talking as well. Is definitely a guy we're going to be hearing a lot about during, I think, this coaching cycle with just his.
Well, I mean, Smokey, don't you think the culture piece is there?
Yeah.
If you make that move?
Yeah. No, I do. I don't know if that means he's going to be, in 2 years you're going to start hearing about him going somewhere else. I'm not sure if that NFL aspirations now is as hot a topic, although it's hard to win in the NFL. Yeah, no, I thought about that. I really have, because it seems like it fits, and I think his game and the way he talks would fit there. He's got the old Penn State model, right? Well, Nebraska and Penn State were almost identical in many, many different ways.
Yeah, that's right. I could see him being, now obviously the timing on that is tricky. I think that the Panthers' Week 13 bye is around the same time Nebraska's regular season ends. And I'm not wishing for him to fail and lose his job by any means, but I am curious. As much as it might seem like the obvious choice here is probably Matt Campbell, and that's probably how I see it today. At the same time, it's probably going to be a pretty interesting road that they're going down here, where there's probably going to be, I don't think that this is as hard of a job as Scott Frost made it look, and I think the compensation, when the guy's already making $5 million, is going to be attractive to people. I think the new Big Ten deal is going to be attractive to people. It'll be interesting to see which kind of coaches are drawn to the job.
So